Welcome back, Ultrawide fans. Scott here, and today I'm going to be helping you decide which of these Nvidia cards is the right card for your gaming situation. We'll be looking at raster performance in these two cards to see if they provide the experience you're looking for with the type of games that you play. And we'll be looking at the price difference to see if it makes sense to spend the extra money to move up from one card to the other. The specific cards we'll be testing today are the Zotac Gaming Trinity RTX 4070 Ti and the Zotac Gaming Trinity RTX 4080. We'll be testing these cards in 10 different games in a variety of genres across 4 different ultrawide resolutions so that you can decide what is the best product for you. Everything was tested on my test system featuring an AMD R7 5800X 3D CPU with 32GB of 3200MHz CL14 memory and running Windows 11 with the latest Nvidia game-ready drivers. Our first game is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, played on its ultra-high preset. Here we see both cards performing very well. At our 1440p ultrawide resolution, we see both cards hitting high refresh rates, with the 4080 coming in 18% faster than the 4070 Ti, with the cards getting 116 FPS and 98 FPS averages. The 4080 is 27% faster in the 1% lows. At the 1600p ultrawide resolution, the 4080 is still in high refresh rates of 105 FPS, coming in 21% faster than the 4070 Ti, which is now in smooth range at 87 FPS. The 4080 is 28% faster in the 1% lows. Moving to our 1440p Super Ultrawide, we see the 4080 drop into smooth refresh rates at 88 FPS, now only 16% faster than the 4070 Ti at 76 FPS. The 4080 is still 22% faster in the 1% lows. At the pixel-dense 5120 by 2160 4K ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 stays smooth with a refresh rate of 71 FPS, with a 20% faster performance than the 4070 Ti, which dips into acceptable range at 59 FPS. The 4080 is 18% faster in the 1% lows, with the 4070 Ti dropping into unacceptable range. In Assassin's Creed, we see the 4070 Ti delivering all the performance necessary for a good play experience in our lower 3 resolutions. The 19% faster performance of the 4080 means it can play at even our 5120 by 2160 resolution. Next up, we have the rough and rowdy Borderlands 3 played at its badass preset. We see another pretty decent performance out of both cards. At our most popular 3440 by 1440p ultrawide, we see the 4080 getting a very high refresh rate of 124 FPS, only 23% faster than the 4070 Ti's 101 FPS. The 4080 is only 17% faster than the 4070 Ti in the 1% lows. Moving up in resolution to the 1600p ultrawide, we see the 4080 now in high refresh rates at 112 FPS, now 30% faster than the 4070 Ti at 86 FPS. The 4080's 1% low is now 29 FPS faster than the 4070 Ti. Looking at our Super Ultrawide, we see the 4080 hanging on to high refresh rates of 95 FPS, 29% ahead of the 4070 Ti's 73 FPS, with the 4080 31% faster in the 1% low. And lastly, at the 4K Ultrawide, we see the 4080 drop to smooth refresh rates of 70 FPS, 32% faster than the 4070 Ti's 53 FPS, and with notably better 1% lows for the 4080, 46% ahead of the 4070 Ti, which dips into unacceptable territory, likely due to its low video memory. The 4070 Ti provides a nice play experience at all resolutions except for the 4K Ultrawide, where its 1% low takes a beating thanks to its low video memory, while the 4080 is able to sail cleanly through the whole range. For our racing fans, we have Forza Horizon 5 played at its extreme preset. At our 1440p ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 delivering 120 FPS to the 102 FPS of the RTX 4070 Ti, a 19% performance delta. We see a closer 1% low, with the 4080 only 11% faster. Moving to 1600p ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 still 18% ahead with 111 FPS to the 94 FPS of the 4070 Ti. The 4080 is now 16% ahead for the 1% low. At 5120 by 1440 Super Ultrawide, we see the 4080 stay in high refresh rates, delivering 103 FPS, 20% ahead of the 4070 Ti at 86 FPS. And the 4080's 1% low advantage now matches its average at 20%. And at our 4K ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 delivering 88 FPS, 19% faster than the 74 FPS of the 4070 Ti. And we see the 4080 lead in the 1% low by another 20%. The RTX 4070 Ti puts in a strong showing at every resolution, relegating the 4080 to just a nice to have. The new action RPG Forspoken is up next, being played on its ultra setting with ray tracing and FSR turned off. At our 1440p ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 delivering smooth frame rates of 72 FPS, 25% faster than the 4070 Ti, with its frame rate only in acceptable territory at 58 FPS. The 4080 leads in the 1% lows by 26%, with the 4070 Ti falling into unacceptable range already. Moving up to our 1600p ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 still in smooth range, with a 65 FPS average, 29% ahead of its 4070 Ti at 50 FPS. We still see acceptable 1% lows for the 4080 and 32% slower unacceptable 1% lows for the 4070 Ti. Moving to our super ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 fall into unacceptable territory with a 55 FPS average, 24% ahead of the 4070 Ti's average of 45 FPS. The 4080 is still in acceptable range with a 26% faster 1% low. We see the 4070 Ti's VRAM start to hit its limit with a slight reduction in texture quality at this resolution. At our 4K ultrawide resolution, even the 4080 drops into unacceptable range for its average with only 43 FPS to the 35 FPS of the 4070 Ti, still a 24% advantage. 1% lows are not looking any better, with the 4070 Ti dropping into unplayable range, 32% behind the 4080. And to add to the 4070 Ti's performance woes, it has completely dumped its texture info, leaving the game looking as bad as it plays. Forspoken is a tough game to run regardless of the resolution, and as the resolution goes up, the 4070 Ti's memory gets overwhelmed, reducing its visuals as well as its performance. The 4080 holds on to decent frame rates for a bit longer, but with a 25% performance advantage, it too eventually succumbs at our higher resolution, though its larger memory pool allows it to keep the visual fidelity high all the way through. Next, we venture into the land of robot dinosaurs with Horizon Zero Dawn, played on its ultimate quality preset. At the 1440p ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 delivering some very high refresh rates of 146 FPS, 27% faster than the 115 FPS of the 4070 Ti, with the 1% lows 39% faster for the 4080. Moving to 600p ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080's lead grow to 37%, with a 128 FPS average to the 4070 Ti's 93 FPS. The 1% low advantage is now a staggering 57% in the 4080's favor. For our super ultrawide resolution, the 4080 is getting 137 FPS, 36% ahead of the 4070 Ti's 101 FPS. For our 1% lows, we see the 4080's lead grow to 71% as the 4070 Ti's video memory starts to run out. You can see the 1% low of the 4070 Ti drop despite having the average go up. Then, at our 4K ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 pull well ahead in performance as the 4070 Ti's lack of video memory causes its performance to drop, getting only 54 FPS to the 4080's 83 FPS, a 54% deficit. And at the 1% lows, we see the 4080 an even more significant 79% ahead. Despite the high frame rates at lower resolutions, we see the 4070 Ti's video memory run out as things get more demanding, causing it to become stuttery and slow, where the 4080's more reasonable memory allocation allows it to have playable frame rates all the way down the stack. Next up, we have Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy played on its Ultra preset. At 3440 by 1440 ultrawide, we see the 4080 hit super high refresh rates of 180 FPS, 17% ahead of the 4070 Ti, with a 154 FPS average, and a reasonable 14% 1% low advantage for the 4080. Moving to our 1600p ultrawide, we see very high refresh rates of 161 FPS for the 4080, 21% ahead of the 4070 Ti and its 133 FPS, and the 4080 is 19% ahead in the 1% low. At our super ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 get 139 FPS, 23% ahead of the 4070 Ti's 113 FPS, but amazingly tied for 90 at the 1% low. I'm chalking this up to a driver anomaly caused by the 32:9 aspect ratio. Lastly, at our 4K ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 return to form with a 105 FPS average, a 26% advantage over the 4070 Ti's 83 FPS, and an equally good 26% 1% low advantage for the 4080. The 4070 Ti manages to get great frame rates all the way down the resolution stack, relegating the 4080's extra frame rate to an unnecessary luxury. Representing our online shooters, we have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, played on its Ultra preset with resolution quality set to fixed 100%. At 1440p ultra-wide resolution, we see the RTX 4080 hit super high refresh rates again, delivering 204 FPS, 24% ahead of the 165 FPS for the 4070 Ti, with a 26% 1% low advantage for the 4080. At 3840 by 1600 ultra-wide, we see the 4080 maintain a strong lead of 27%, with a 161 FPS average to the 140 FPS of the 4070 Ti, and a steady 27% 1% low advantage. On our super ultra-wide, we see the 4080's lead stay steady at 28%, with a 139 FPS average to the 121 FPS of the 4070 Ti, with a 26% 1% low advantage for the 4080. At 4K ultra-wide resolution, we see the 4080 drop into high refresh rates of 105 FPS, 29% faster than the 85 FPS of the 4070 Ti, and a similar 1% low advantage of 28%. Again, we see the 4070 Ti deliver enough performance to make the 4080's extra grunt unnecessary. Now we go hunting for the treasure of high FPS with Laura in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, played at its highest preset. Here we see another in a string of very high refresh rate games for the 4070 Ti. At 3440 by 1440, we see very high refresh rates for both cards, but the 4080 still manages a strong lead of 25%, delivering 160 FPS to the 128 FPS of the 4070 Ti. The 1% low advantage isn't quite as large for the 4080 at 20%. At the 1600p ultra-wide resolution, we see more very high refresh rates for the 4080 of 139 FPS, 26% ahead of our high refresh rate average of the 4070 Ti at 110 FPS, and the 1% low difference is much the same at 32%. At our 1440p super ultra-wide resolution, we see the 4080 hang on to very high refresh rates, delivering 121 FPS, 27% ahead of the 95 FPS of the 4070 Ti, and a similar 24% advantage for the 4080 for the 1% lows. Even on our resolution king, we see both cards keeping everything above 60, with the 4080 delivering 88 FPS, 31% faster than the 67 FPS of the 4070 Ti, and the 1% low difference is now 28%. Again, in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 4070 Ti proves to be all the card you need, keeping even its 1% low above 60 at all resolutions. Now we come to the infamous Cyberpunk 2077, the can it play crisis of our time, where we'll be testing the Ultra preset with FSR turned off. On our 1440p ultra-wide, we see the 4080 come out of the gates well ahead, with our 97 FPS average 34% faster than the 4070 Ti and its 73 FPS average. 1% lows see a similar 35% advantage over the 4070 Ti. Moving to 1600p ultra-wide, we see a similar situation, with the 4080 delivering 81 FPS average, 34% faster than the 61 FPS average of the 4070 Ti, with the 1% low gap at 31% in the 4080's favor. And adding some more pixels to get us to our super ultra-wide resolution, we see the 4080 stay in smooth gameplay range, with a 70 FPS average, 35% faster than the acceptable 52 FPS of the 4070 Ti, and we see the 1% low difference 25% faster. It is enough to see that the 4070 Ti drop into unacceptable 1% lows. At our max resolution of 5120 by 2160, 4K ultra-wide, we see even the mighty 4080 drop into acceptable range, with a 46 FPS average, still 36% faster than the 4070 Ti's 34 FPS average, and the 1% low gap widens at this resolution to 40%, seeing the 4070 Ti fall into unplayable territory. The 4070 Ti still hangs in there at the two lower resolutions, but this game is a clear case of where the 4080's extra power would be well appreciated. We have arrived at our final game, and this one is for our strategy buffs. It's Total War Warhammer III, played on its Ultra preset using the battle simulation. At our 1440p ultra-wide, we see the 4080 starting off with high refresh rates, getting 97 FPS, a 29% faster result than the 4070 Ti's 57 FPS, but with a similar advantage of 27% for the 1% lows. At 3840 by 1600, we see both cards stay in smooth territory, with an 84 FPS average for the 4080, a 30% better result than the 65 FPS average for the 4070 Ti, with a slightly higher 31% 1% low advantage for the 4080. For our 1440p Super Ultrawide Resolution, we see a smooth 73 FPS for the 4080, a 29% advantage over the 4070 Ti that gets an acceptable 56 FPS, with similar 30% advantages at the 1% low. And our final resolution on our final game, the 4K Ultrawide, sees the 4080 getting an acceptable 54 FPS average, 29% faster than the 41 FPS average of the 4070 Ti, and another 30% advantage for the 1% low. Again, we see the common through line in this testing, where the 4070 Ti performs admirably at our two lower resolutions, but starts to suffer at the higher two, where the 4080 is still able to manage all the way through. Now let's round everything up and see what we have. For a 3440 by 1440p Ultrawide, we see the 4080 delivering a very high 132 FPS average to the high 107 FPS of the 4070 Ti, a 23% lead for the 4080, and the same 23% performance advantage for the 1% lows. When we take a look at the per game results, we see two super high refresh rates for the 4080 and none for the 4070 Ti. The 4080 has another 4 games in very high refresh rates, to the 3 for the 4070 Ti, and 3 high refresh rate games for the 4080 and 4 for the 4070 Ti. A single game lands in smooth range for the 4080, while the 4070 Ti gets 2 smooth games and 1 acceptable. When we look at the 1% lows for the 4080, we see all but one game is above 60, and the final game is still getting acceptable 1% lows, making the 4080 an easy recommend for gamers at this resolution, barely managing to not be overkill. When looking at the 4070 Ti's 1% lows, we see 8 out of the 10 games above 60, with 1 in acceptable range and 1 in unacceptable range. Forspoken does support DLSS, which with a quick application of the quality setting will right this ship, making the 4070 Ti a solid choice for this resolution. For a 3840 by 1600 Ultrawide, we see more high refresh rate averages of 103 and 92 FPS, a 27% advantage for the 4080 and a similar 28% advantage at the 1% lows. When we take a look at the per game results, we see 4 very high refresh rate games for the 4080 and 2 for the 4070 Ti, with 3 high refresh rate games for both cards. We have 3 smooth games for the 4080 and 4 for the 4070 Ti, and 1 acceptable. Not much has changed performance bucket-wise from the previous resolution, aside from the 4080 not being able to hang on to its super high refresh rates. When we look at the 1% lows for the 4080, we again see 9 games above 60 and 1 in an acceptable range, making the 4080 a great pick at this resolution. And when we look at the 4070 Ti's 1% low results, we also see 6 games above 60, 3 in acceptable range, and still only 1 in unacceptable range. With only minor FPS loss, DLSS quality should still be able to get it back into a fine playable state, meaning that the 4070 Ti is still recommended for this resolution. At 5120 by 1440p Super Ultrawide, we see the 4080 stay in high refresh rates with 103 FPS, 26% faster than the 82 FPS of the 4070 Ti, and the same 26% performance difference is seen in the 1% lows. When we look at the individual game level, we still see 4 very high refresh rate games for the 4080, but only a single very high refresh rate game for the 4070 Ti. The 4080 sees 2 high refresh rate games, with the 4070 Ti getting 3, and 3 smooth games for both cards. The 4080 sees its first acceptable game, compared to the 3 acceptable games for the 4070 Ti. When looking at the 1% lows for the 4080, we see 8 out of the 10 games above 60, with 2 in acceptable range, making the 4080 a great card for this resolution. And looking at the 4070 Ti's results, we see 6 out of the 10 games above 60, 2 games in acceptable range, and 2 in unacceptable range. If it wasn't for the issues we have seen cropping up around the 4070 Ti's low VRAM, I could give this card a pass at this resolution. Needing upscaling on 30% of your games from the start isn't ideal, but it won't stop you from being able to play anything. But with the low VRAM issues, I'm going to err on the side of caution and not recommend this card for this resolution. At our final 5120 by 2160 Ultrawide resolution, we see the 4080 now at a smooth refresh rate with 76 FPS average to the acceptable 59 FPS of the 4070 Ti, a 29% difference. And the 4080's 1% lows are 33% ahead of the 4070 Ti's. When we look at the individual game level, we see the 4080 delivered 2 games in high refresh rates, while the 4070 Ti gets none. The 4080 gets 5 games in smooth refresh rates to the 4 games of the 4070 Ti. 2 games are in acceptable range for the 4080, and 3 for the 4070 Ti, and 1 game falls into unacceptable range for the 4080, while the 4070 Ti sees 3 games in unacceptable range. When we look at the 1% lows of the 4080, we see 6 games stay above 60, 2 land in acceptable range, and 2 fall in unacceptable range. DLSS quality is enough to get the 2 unacceptable games up to 60 FPS, making the 4080 an acceptable choice for this resolution, but leaving a case to be made for the 4090. And when we look at the 4070 Ti's 1% lows, we see 4 games above 60, no games in acceptable range, and 4 unacceptable range, and 2 unplayable 1% lows. It is clear that this card is not suitable for this resolution. When we look at price to performance based on the MSRP of these 2 cards, we see the 4070 Ti well ahead with a 20% better price to performance than the 4080. Even when we look at current pricing, where we see the 4070 Ti actually sold for more than its MSRP, while the 4080 holds firm to its MSRP. The current pricing I use is determined by the low bar of having 2 different models of a card in stock and at that price to count as the lowest available price. When we look with that in mind, we see the 4070 Ti jump up by $50 to a retail price of $850 US. Despite this jump in price, the 4080 remains 15% higher price to performance than the 4070 Ti. Here we see that the RTX 4070 Ti has a sweet spot in the 3440 by 1440 and the 3840 by 1600p ultra-wide resolutions, where it produces very good refresh rates in almost all games without any need for DLSS. Meaning that those of you that really desire very high refresh rates have DLSS in your back pocket, so you can turn up the refresh rates to 11. Its low video memory pretty much precludes it from being viable at our high resolutions of 5120 by 1440 and 5120 by 2160, leaving a pretty clear delineation of when you should be stepping up to the next performance level. The RTX 4080 is an amazing performer at our 2 lower resolutions, without actually being overkill for either of them. But its high price means that the 4070 Ti is still the better deal at this resolution, with a much better price performance. Thanks to the larger VRAM, the RTX 4080 is the clear choice at our 2 higher resolutions of 5120 by 1440 and 5120 by 2160. Even though the RTX 4070 Ti has better price performance at these 2 resolutions, the experiential difference that the 4080 provides makes it the clear choice at this resolution despite any kind of price deficit. So there you are. If you want to get the best experience that Team Green has to offer without overspending, then you want to get the 4070 Ti for our 2 lower resolutions and the 4080 for our 2 higher ones. Thank you for watching. If you like ultrawide content, please like and subscribe. Subscribing will really help this channel out. It'll help us get monetized and allow me to be able to buy more GPUs to test on this channel. And if you want to see the RTX 4070 Ti take on Team Red, then you can watch it go up against the RX 7900 XT in this video here. And if you want to buy one of these 2 GPUs, I've linked the 2 cheapest ones I could find online below. Thank you, and have a great day.